Good morning, class 12 students. This is the third part of the poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, written by Stephen Spender. Now it's time for us to discuss the last two, the portion that we covered in the last two videos, and then we will move on to with our today's session. As you're aware, the poem describes a primary basic school in a slum, right? And Stephen Spender, he's actually trying to, attract the attention of the people in power, government, educators, so that they could actually, pay heed to and they could actually understand the difficult and the plight of these children, right? Because they are actually destitute and they lack facilities. And according to him, if they get good education, they will have chance to improve their future. So that is why he has written this poem, and he's actually trying to depict the social injustice and the never-ending poverty, which is which is prevailing in our society, and especially amongst the slum dwellers. So in the first stanza, we see that Stephen Spender, he describes the miserable condition of the children in this school, right? And these children, they actually look very sad and lack of energy. They're like rootless weeds. So you see that the poet has also used a poetic device, simile, where he compares, where children are being compared with rootless weeds. So simile is basically when you compare two unlike things with using as and like rootless weed, right? Because they are like rootless weeds. They're worn out, they lack energy, they are untidy, they are very dirty, very filthy, and they're malnourished, right? They don't get enough food, they're hungry. And because what we people do, when what we do, we just simply uproot weeds from our garden, and we just throw them. Similarly, these children, they have been thrown, and they are unwanted. Society doesn't want them. So you could actually see that they're in the first stanza, we see that their hair, it is not even properly maintained or managed, right? Very untidy, very shabby. They're very shabby looking, right? And then the poet mentions about a girl who is burdened with the cruelty of life. And also there is a boy, and who is he is paper seeming boy. So we see the use of metaphor, where boy is being compared with paper, as he is very thin, right? So this is again one of the main poetic devices that we have in the poem, because this poem is actually brimming with images, symbolisms, alliteration, similes, and metaphors, right? So in the first stanza, we have simile, metaphor, and repetition. And then we have and then he talks about a boy. He has eyes like that of a rat. So eyes like that of a rat, this is also an example of images. And he's searching for food and betterment. This is actually images. And eyes like a rat, it means it is a kind of it is a metaphor, where you see the comparison. And his eyes, it is actually searching for food and for betterment. So it is not actually the rat's eye, but the rat is always looking for food and betterment. That's how these children are. They're actually looking for opportunities, and yes, for basic needs, and a lot more other things, but they are always unwanted, understand. And then we have a child in the classroom, and he is a victim of genetic disorder. Genetic disorder, he has gnarled bones, which means twisted bones, and his growth is stunted. So this is what he has inherited from his father, and he is reciting his lesson from his desk in a very weak voice. And in one corner of this poorly lit classroom, we see that there is a sweet boy who remains unnoticed, and he is he's completely distracted, and he's completely distracted. He's not paying attention to, to this monotonous lecture. And yeah, he's actually watching. He is looking at Squirrel. Squirrel's game, which is playing in its tree room. So tree room here is actually the place where Squirrel lives. So this actually, this also shows that the child is actually, he's craving for, freedom, or for openness, and an open space, and yes, a place, which is far away from the slum. And then in the second stanza, we see that now the poet describes the condition of the classroom. The condition of the classroom, where, the classrooms are dirty, and you could see that on the walls, on the walls are displayed the names of people who have given donations. You could also see the bust of Shakespeare, right, which is clear in the background. And we could also see the beautiful pictures of Tarlis valleys. So, this is a valley in Austria. This is this is are these are all the examples of images and symbolism, right? And there is also a map, a world map. So, but for the children, this map means nothing, because they have never been outside, right? They have never been outside. And in this stanza, we see that the poet has used metaphor in a way to show that the walls are described to be, dull as sour cream. And then there is also a metaphor in, narrow street sealed with, narrow road enclosed with a dull sky, which means, so it doesn't obviously they are living in a very confined and restricted area, but this also means that the future of these slum dwellers, it has been shown as limited, restricted. I mean, they don't have any future. That is why it is said that a narrow road enclosed with a dull sky. So they don't have. That is why they are depressing, they are disappointed. Understand? And then in the third stanza, we see that the poet seems aggressive, and he describes Shakespeare as wicked. Why wicked? Because he's actually misleading the children, because Shakespeare is the highest figure in English literature, right? And also all these images, the world, the world of ships and sun and love, they are tempting these children to steal them, or to to run away from the slum. But even if they run away, they won't be able to have a secure future unless until they have good education. So these are all tempting. It is actually, because if they don't get good education, if they don't get opportunities, they will be forced to become criminals. So that is why he has said that Shakespeare is wicked. And all the images, ships, suns, and all these things, they are very unreal for them, right? Because they are actually corrupting them. They are actually you could say that actually forcing them to steal and then run away from from the place where they are, which he has their play he has used a specific word for their place. It is called cramped hole, right? It is called as cramped hole. So and yes, we can also, Shakespeare here, it could also be an example of poetic device called allusion, ALLUSION, where we see that it has a, because allusion is an indirect reference to something, a place or person. So we see that Shakespeare had and Tyrlee's Valley, and at the same time Tyrlee's Valley is also an example of symbolism or images, right? And then we see cramped hole. Cramped hole means which is confined, not spacious, restricted, right? So but in the second last stanza, or in the third stanza, he has used, Stephen Spender has used metaphor to show that their homes are very small, like holes, like cramped holes, right? And yes, these children, there is a boy, he wears spectacles that are broken, right? It is mended. So we see that simile, like bottle bits on stone, right? Broken pieces of and then we use when we also find the use of alliteration from fog when we see that f sound is being repeated. So this is what we have already done in the last two videos, so you can go back and check. So I have discussed, I have, even in this video I have discussed I mean the main poetic devices used in the last three stanzas. So now I think we are supposed to go through the final stanza, right? I think we have all, I think in the last video I read this stanza, but I did not explain it, right? And we just studied the difficult words, but let me just read it one more time. So I will be highlighting it first. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window, and this maps become their window, and these window that shut upon their lives like catacombs. Catacombs, we discussed this. Is actually, you could say, cemetery, where people, it is actually the passage that leads to, yes, where the people are buried. In those times, we have those, cemetery underground. So that is called catacombs. So that shut upon their lives like a catacombs. So this is okay. And then break open till they break the town, and show the children to green fields, and make their world run azure on gold sands, and let their tongues run naked into books white and green, leaves open history theirs whose language is the sun. So what are the poetic devices? Metaphor we can clearly see books and nature are expressed in a form of white and green leaves, right? And then we have anaphora. You could see the use of run. I think we discussed this in the last video. You could see this word is being repeated in the beginning of following clause. So this is an example of, this is not repetition, because repetition has no pattern. It can, the word can be repeated anywhere or any place in the whole stanza or in the whole poem, but there is a anaphora has a specific pattern. As you can see, it comes in the beginning of a following clause, right? So you could see run azure and run naked. So so in this stanza, what a poet what poet is saying, that nothing can be done, right? Nothing can be done. You cannot remove the condition of people living in people living in slum dweller, unless governor or a school inspector, educationist, or a visitor comes to the school, right? Because that map is the only medium for the children, to see the world, because they have never been outside. They are like confined. They cannot go out, because they have not been given any opportunities. They are stuck, right? And the windows of their classroom, it actually shut them and confined them to their world of unhappiness. So that is why the poet is saying that that is why the government and the concerned people need to pay attention, right? And then he also appealed to the people who are in power, because they have the power to to help these slum children, right? Otherwise they will continue, they will be they will be forced. I mean, they are living in such conditions. They will be living in such conditions unless and until somebody who's concerned pays attention to pay attention to them, right? And because they lack educational facilities, and poet actually wants in this stanza, the poet actually shows that he wants he wants these children so that they can achieve their dreams, and and if they will be able to achieve their dream, they will be able to run away from fog is actually the limited future, no future. Okay, from fog to azure, from fog and to to a place where they could actually see, where they could walk on the beach, they could enjoy the fresh weather, right? And he also wants that, in simple way, he just wants these children to have better future. He wants them to experience the sands and, yes, the beauty of nature, and that's will only possible when will they get education, right? So they the run naked into books, the white and green. What he means to say is that they will only be able to successful when we know they will go through the white and green leaves. It means when because white here it means books, and green here it means nature. So when they will where they have enough education, they will only then only they will be able to enjoy the nature. Understand? So that is why education is very necessary. They need to have good education so that they can improve their future, right? Because right now their future is it is actually painted with fog. It is they have no future, they have no hope, and they will only be able to paint a bright future for themselves only when they have good education. And that will not only be it won't be possible if without the intervene of government authority, school inspector or educationist. That is why it is very necessary that these children must be helped. So you could actually see in the last line you see that history theirs whose language is the sun. So the poet he has wound up his poem. I mean, he took he ended his poem on a very positive note, and he has expressed that only the people who are knowledgeable, they have those who have this hunger for knowledge, those who wants to learn, they are the one who creates history. Understand? And they have the history. So one always needs to remember that the people who are educated, right, only they are able to reform themselves, and only they can build a better world. So that's what we have in this poem. Understand? So important thing, what has been referred to as catacombs, it is just the little narrow homes of slum dwellers, but the literal meaning is that when if you will if you're asked to write the meaning, that is called cemetery of tomb. But here the metaphor, it has metaphor, which means there is an underlining meaning. The little narrow homes of the slum dwellers has been referred to as catacombs. Understand? And so that's all we have in this poem. In case you have any questions or any doubts, you can talk to me. And please children, do please do not ignore the poetic devices we have. So let me just because similes and metaphors are very important. We have few alliteration in this poem. We have far from gusty waves, you see F sound is being repeated. Then we have surely Shakespeare, you see S sound is being repeated. And then bottle bits, this B sound is repeated, right? And then we have simile is very simple to identify. Like rootless weed, we see like. If you see as, so like rootless weed, we have like. So it is an example of simile, because you see comparison of two unlike things with the using like. And then like catacombs, but catacomb is also an example of metaphor, right? So it is both simile and metaphor. And then we have like bottle bits on stones, it is an example of simile. Slum as big as dome, it is an example of simile. And then we have metaphor. Rat's eye means these children are very hungry, they want food, they want opportunity, right? Father's gnarl disease, what the children has received from his father, but it also show that how misfortunate he is, right? Squirrel games, it does not only mean squirrel games, it also means the freedom. Tree room means the space, the open space. Open-handed map, it means the map the world that belong to those people. Open-handed map made by those people. Future painted with a fog means these children have no future, it is hopeless. Lead sky, it is again same example. Lead sky means they they live in a place which is very confined, and they have lack of opportunities, right? Crammed hole, it is the place, it is the home, it is the slum where they live. Slag heap are these children. Slag heap means it is metaphor. When you what even the scrap has some values, right? Whatever you throw has some value. What is discarded thing has some value, and once you remove these valuable things from a discarded one, what remains is slag heap, which has no value. So that's how these these children are like slag heap. They don't have any value, they are unwanted, right? where skins peeped through by bones. This is again an example of metaphor. It also means that they are very malnourished, lack of nutrition, they don't have enough food to eat. And spectacles of steel, this also depicts their condition, that the plight and the ordeal of slum dwellers. Let their tongue run naked into books means offer them education, let them have education. White and green leaves open means book and nature. So these are the all poetic device that I have discussed. Please rewind the video and listen each and every word that I've just spoken, all the poetic devices. And yes, simile and images, there are so many. You can, sour cream walls, Tyrlee's Valley, ship and sons, open-handed maps. These are all an example of images and all. So that's all for today, children. Have a nice day. In case you have any doubt, you can ask me, and please do make a list of poetic devices. And also in these days, you are being given MCQs, right? So today also you will receive MCQs. Do them faithfully. Don't just copy answers from the internet. Read the poem, try to understand, and then answer, because copying answers won't help you. You have to prepare yourself for your term examination, term 1, your pre-board first. That will be MCQ based, 90 minutes, right? So please start preparing, start gearing up. So have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.